What's up, family? Welcome back to another video. So let's talk about the madness unfolding on CNN. And you'll think that a national news network would keep things grounded, but instead we got identity politics, fake outrage, and another meltdown over immigration enforcement. So here's the deal, right? And I want to preface the conversation before we actually get into the video so we can have a conversation as always. CNN covered the case of Kilmar Garcia, a man deported to a high security prison in El Salvador, and the Biden administration was under pressure to bring him back despite alleged ties to MS-13. Sounds crazy? That's because it is. So instead of discussing facts, CNN's panel turned into a race war. Emotions flared, people shouted over each other, and one panelist tried to gaslight the audience by saying, "I think you misheard her," or "No, we didn't. We heard it loud and clear." And then came the wildest claim of all. One guest compared illegal immigrants to African slaves. Seriously? That's not just false. It's offensive to history. And slaves were brought here in chains, okay? Illegals crossed the border by choice. Those two things are not the same, and they're two different type of conversations. And pretending they are just kills the credibility of any argument being made, and it doesn't really substantiate your point. So this is what happens when ideology trumps reason. Well, with no further ado, family, let's get into the video.
Neglect and letting people walk into here without any process at all, and now you're trying to gum up the works to keep them here.
A lot of them came in. A lot of them came in with parole. A lot of them came.
CNN polling shows 54% of Americans want Mr.
November polling
Garcia
showed Donald
back.
Trump won the
That's
election.
CNN polling.
November
public is
polling
shifting.
All right. We are a sovereign nation, and you cannot just come into our country illegally whenever the heck you want, because we can't do it to any other country on the face of this earth.
Asylum is illegal, right?
If you come in illegally, you have to leave. Americans are tired of that. We do not have unlimited resources.
You know who was here illegally with a deportation order? Marco Rubio's grandfather.
All right,
We're not talking about Marco Rubio.
Oh, now we're not? Now that's not relevant?
It's not relevant.
No, I'm talking about Marco
Rubio
Rubio because Marco Rubio used to be an advocate for TPS for Venezuelans, and Marco Rubio used to be an advocate for Nicaraguans and Cubans. No, I know you're not.
If you come to this country illegally, you are going home. Simple as that. We do not have unlimited resources.
I think a lot of Americans
to take care of other people.
There's a hell of a lot of people,
guys.
other than the black people who were brought here as slaves who came to this country illegally.
They're not the same as black people who were brought here against our will.
That's exactly what I just said.
I said
there is a lot of people
There's
a big difference.
There is a big difference.
That's exactly what I just said.
That's
exactly what I just said, Sir Michael. Look and act indignant. That's exactly what I just said.
Let me just share, Michael.
Other than the black
Anna and share, Michael.
There are a lot of people from many
I think you actually misheard what she. I think you misheard what she said.
No, he purposely misheard.
She said.
I purposely misheard. So now you're in my
Share,
brain?
Michael. Listen to me for just a second.
Is that where we're going?
Share, Michael.
I would say I who have advocated for black people my entire life would say something like that?
Anna,
because you've advocated for black people, great. Congratulations. Last time I checked, I'm black. You're not.
Okay, Share, Michael.
That's right. I'm Latino, and my people are being racially profiled.
It is.
And do I have to remind you the history of my people?
Share,
do I want to go?
You see how she tried to move the goalposts? She said something ignorant and she started talking about, you see how my people, but she was talking specifically about African slaves and slavery and trying to tie that to immigration. Just talk about the subject and the topic for what it was that you originally talked about to substantiate your point. Don't try to move the goalposts and making something is not, and then you realize that you couldn't substantiate your argument and you got a reality check because you got held accountable on basically trying to bring up a cruel time in history to substantiate your point instead of speaking to the topic for what it is. And now you're personally attacking another race just to substantiate your point about what's going on when it comes to immigration and immigration enforcement. Blows my mind. Let's finish up, man.
No, I don't.
Okay, we're going to go to break. Raul, we're going to go to break. Raul Reyes, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody else, hang tight. We'll be right back.
So there you have it, folks. They went on a commercial break. But look, this is what happens when ideology trumps reason. Instead of acknowledging the very real concerns about border security, crime, and sovereignty, we get distractions, word games, and moral lectures from people who wouldn't survive a 5-minute debate outside of their little bubble. And by the way, CNN isn't even breaking into the top 25 cable news shows. Why? Because people are tired of being lied to. They want news, not narratives. And CNN's slogan has always been the thing of, here to tell you the truth and tell you the truth and just tell you the news, reporting the facts, right? But they're not reporting the facts. They've been so infatuated with playing political games and playing politics, basically informing individuals based off opinion, telling a half truth, a half lie, and smearing it all together in their own ideologies instead of the facts. So, look, this country is a sovereign nation, and enforcing immigration law is not racism. It's common sense. You break the law, there are consequences. That's not controversial. And that's how every other country on earth operates. The same folks fighting deportation are silent about the cost to our schools, to our hospitals, and law enforcement. And let's be honest, a lot of this resistance is about political power. And the more the people they let in, the more seats they can claim through the census. That's the game, folks. And you can call it progressive, compassionate, whatever, but don't call it smart because it's not. It's chaos dressed as virtue, and the left wants to keep defending that chaos, and that's what it's all about, basically. And it's just mind-blowing to me that you can basically try to create narratives jeopardizing the trust of the American people and creating and saying such conflicting things. And I don't know, man. It's just a lot of folks try to say um he's reportedly affiliated with MS-13, Kilmar Garcia, a transnational gang responsible for the most brutal crimes in Western Hemisphere. But what you need to know is, Kilmar Garcia was founded in Los Angeles, now operating throughout Central America, known for violence, extortion, and drug trafficking, labeled a criminal enterprise by the U.S. government, which is MS-13. So now, whether Garcia is officially a gang member or a member of MS-13 is being debated. That's not my stance on what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about solely the facts when it comes to immigration enforcement, and also we're keeping the safety and the public safety of citizens in the country that's illegal. Rather you are an immigrant that came to the United States legally, and just for all legal citizens in America doing the right thing, conducting in the confines of being a legal, viable individual when it comes to being an asset to the community and being just a productive citizen overall, right? So, look, some say there's no formal conviction, other points to gang tattoos, which I'll show you now because President Trump has showed it. It says on his hands, on his hands, it has a marijuana plant, it has a smiley face, it has a cross and a skull. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's Photoshop. Oh, it doesn't say MS-13. Well, it's been highly known. And also individuals and me living in, you know, a hood and being raised in a black community, gang members and people that are drug dealers or whatever, they don't talk in terms of just saying it directly, right? They talk with little slogans, they talk with slang, so obviously translate that to the tattoos on his hand. Those symbols don't directly say MS-13, but they can mean it in different forms in different ways because their whole thing is create a language and create a symbolism around the gang or the drug dealers or whatever their group or clique is, so only they understand the lingo so they don't get caught and seem more susceptible to being caught because it's not as obvious, right? That's just common sense. But at the end of the day, what's not up for debate is the fact that he was in the U.S. illegally. An immigration court previously found enough credible evidence to withhold his removal, which isn't the same as granting asylum or a green card. So instead of unpacking the facts, like I said, the CNN panel descended in chaos. We had shouting, as you've seen, emotional outbursts, and one commentator comparing illegal immigrants to African slaves brought here against their will. And let's be clear, that's a false equivalence. Slavery was the worst in history and autocracy. and people were kidnapped, sold as property, stripped of freedom. Illegal immigration involves adults making a choice. If you want to really substantiate your point, substantiate the two different type of conversations and substantiate your point, because sometimes the adults were making a choice, sometimes for understandable reasons, to break a law and enter a sovereign nation without permission. And equating those two experiences, though, is not only intellectually dishonest, it's offensive to real history. And what I mean by, look, it's understandable for reasons, because some people may be coming across the border illegally because they want to better their lives, but it doesn't make it right that you still have broken the law coming here illegally. And another wrong is obviously coming here drug trafficking and basically killing communities, selling drugs and trafficking kids and all these horrible things and being a gang. Obviously, that's an obvious wrong reason to cross illegally. So however you want to put it, crossing illegally into a country and not being legalized or legal citizen is wrong in itself. But individuals have their own intentions and motives, which may not necessarily be wrong, but the action they took to go to the country illegally is wrong in itself. No doubt about it. So look, the bigger issue is, are we still allowed to have a country with laws? Immigration isn't about race, if you want to be honest, and that's how I look at it. It's about rules, and if a nation can't enforce its borders, it's not really a nation at all. Look, U.S. border facts: over 7 million encounters at the border since 2021. At least 1.7 million known gotaways. Fentanyl deaths up to 279% over 5 years. And you can look this up, right? And there's an estimated 20 million illegal immigrants currently in the U.S. Look, none of this is sustainable. Americans know it. That's why immigration consistently ranks as a top concern, as it did and has still been a top concern in the polls when they voted Donald Trump in. Yet, instead of listening, legacy media gaslights the people, calling concerns racist and xenophobic or outdated. And here's the irony: people aren't going to buy into CNN no more, and people aren't buying it no more anyway. So the CNN network that hosted this shouting match doesn't, they wonder why that their show is going down to trash. Um, Americans are tuning out. They're tired of the narratives, and we want truth. Stop lying to us. So when ratings tank, what do networks do? They lean harder into controversy. They confuse volume for value. But yelling doesn't equal winning, and facts doesn't change because they make you uncomfortable. So here's another layer. Why are some politicians and media figures so eager to prevent deportations? You may ask. One reason: the census, like I mentioned before. The more people, legal or illegal, in the district, the more representation in Congress. That's power, that's money, and politics. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's how apportionment works. You increase population, you increase representation. That's why some are fighting tooth and nail to keep illegal immigrants here, even those with criminal records jeopardizing the public safety of American people. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can be compassionate and enforce the law, and we can prioritize legal immigration the right way while shutting down chaos at the border. That means finishing the wall in key sectors, ending catch and release, expanding merit-based immigration, increasing deportation for criminal aliens, and cutting incentives for illegal crossings. But look, here's the takeaway of my final thoughts. If your immigration policy depends on emotional arguments, racial guilt, or rewriting history, it's probably not good policy. America is a welcoming country. Let's not get that construed or mixed up. But welcoming doesn't mean lawless. It means fair, safe, and orderly. You want to help people? Great. Start by helping Americans who are playing by the rules, not criminals breaking them. That's not harsh. That's not extreme. That's just common sense. But thank you for watching, family. If you're tired of the media spin and ready for the talk, real talk, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. And let's keep the conversation honest. Let me know what your thoughts down in the comments below. Hope you guys got some value from this video. On that note, family, let the love supersede the hate. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. I'll catch you in the next one, family. Peace.